close range, this Middle Eastern wheat field doesn't look any different to paddocks of Australian wheat. But the dry storage and baking qualities of prime grain like this from Narrabri, New South Wales, has won new wheat sale records for Australia. 11 Middle East countries have just bought 5 million tonnes of Australian wheat. But if the bakers of Egypt, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Oman, for example, are to keep up that demand, they need help from Australia's Bread Research Institute in Lane Cove, Sydney. From the milling to the mixing, Australia's wheat is harder than the American wheat that used to dominate the Middle Eastern grain market.
In the baking properties, the American wheat generally is a tough wheat that requires a lot of work, a lot of development, a lot of mixing to reach its optimum, where our wheats and flour made from our wheats can obtain this much easier and therefore has a lot going for it.
Bread making is a science and an art to Kevin Moses, Senior Bakery Instructor at the Bread Research Institute. He learnt the ropes in a trade apprenticeship and, like his assistant Greg Walker, comes from a family tradition where their fathers were bakers. The Bread Research Institute tests new wheat varieties each season to improve local bread and to sell Australian wheat overseas.
They may be only sending into us less than half a kilo of wheat, so we can mill it in our small milling laboratory, transfer it over here and test bake it under micro scale. A baker would send it to us in larger quantities where we would test it on the same process but on a larger scale in our pilot bakery.
To sell in the Middle East, the Australians first had to build a replica of a Middle Eastern bread oven.
Well, this is like Thomas Tenor, and one of the big problems we found is that it would fall off before it was baked, and it's a waste of bread. Now we're able to encourage them to add more water, and by adding more water, the dough went in properly, it bubbled in the right direction, and it stayed on the side of the oven wall, which is essential for the baking process. It's gradually peeling off, which is the right thing for it to do. As baking takes place, that prevents burning. And just as it's getting to the right baking, the colouring taking place now, it's got to the right stage for them to remove it without falling off and perfectly baked with the right amount of bubbles present.
It's the same wheat, the same recipe and the same oven. So what went wrong with one sample of pocket bread?
They thought that it was an oven burning problem.
After 5 trips to the Middle East in 4 years, Kevin Moses is an expert. If the cooking doesn't work, then wheat sales drop. So baking ambassadors become important wheat diplomats overseas.
Quite a difference there.
Yes, very much so. Well, you can see that this is a lot of their problem, is that there's insufficient relaxing time. And you saw me put them in the same time,
Yes.
go through the same baking temperature, which is exceptionally hot, but with the right amount of proofing, we can get a texture and colour like this. So it has the traditional, still quite hot, steam coming from it, but it has the traditional even texture on either side.
Field trips to the Middle East and the seminars that you hold here for Middle Eastern countries, how effective are they as a sales pitch for Australian wheat?
Well, it's a bit hard to put a figure on that, but it's quite interesting to see that our reputation as being a supplier of good quality bread baking wheats is becoming more and more world renowned, where previously we were considered to be only capable of producing good quality biscuit flour. We've got more and more Southeast Asian and Middle Eastern countries are requesting our bread baking wheats.
Milling technicians from as far afield as Egypt and China are presently training at the Lane Cove Institute. They stopped off in the bakery to test the proof of the pudding, Australian style.
Good?
Yes, very good.
So it's very good you are baking all these types of bread here, which we are having in Arab countries.
Yes, well, that's the idea, and so we can learn a little bit about how it's done, and you can see that we can get good results using Australian wheat. Roll it up and almost like a hamburger. This one with the za'atar, sim sim, which is very, very tasty. Shami, or also known as Hobbs Lebnani, which is good texture. The Irani, yes, again Irani.
Yes.
Here we have Fino,
Egyptian.
its name.
Baladi.
Baladi bread in Egypt, but called mafrood bird in Saudi. That's right. That's made of wholemeal flour, 82% extraction.
Yes, in China also. It's very popular.
It's very popular in China also. This is
in Chinese, this we call 煎饼.
煎饼.
Yes.
These are becoming more and more popular in Australia. I think there's about 17 Lebanese bakeries in Sydney at the moment producing considerable quantities of this type of bread. And our little oven has been able to assist a number of these Sydney-based bakeries in overcoming a few problems that they've had. So it's not only for the Middle East that we're looking at it for our own ethnic Middle Eastern bakeries as well.